Welcome everybody. You're watching Mr. Fugu Data Science. Today we're doing a continuation of our last exercise, cleaning and exploring online sales data using RStudio. As always, the code will be linked in the description below. Today's purpose and outcome will be finish doing some cleaning and feature extraction, showing another example with a simple GREP with regular expressions, using an IFELSE statement without having to use a loop, checking for some more duplicates, doing a LeftJOIN with MUTATE, and then kind of show like basically some summary tables of what's going on with our data. As always, please subscribe and turn on that notification bell and throw a like. If you don't like the video, leave a comment and tell me why. So let's get into what the data actually looks like. So if you're a little rusty, we have an invoice column, a stock code, the description of the item, the number of items that were purchased, the quantity, when it was purchased, the price, the customer ID, and the country of origin. So, as you notice, you have this negative quantity, which corresponds to this C right here, which means the cancellation. Now we have to take care of these so we could do some analysis, because you have now two rows that are basically occupied and need to be discarded. But how do you discard those? You have this negative quantity and this positive quantity, and you have to figure out, well, how do I start playing around with this, right? So before we get to that, you also have something else to consider. Looking at these stock code, the stock code column, you have some abbreviations that start occurring. And these abbreviations start affecting these descriptions. Okay? So you start saying, what's going on here? Well, I call this a data frame here sorted countries because it was sorted by countries, except for here I ordered it by customer ID. But what we're doing is we're saying, let's look, let's use grep, and let's look for anything that starts with a lowercase or a capital letter from the stock code column. Alright, and let's go through all of the rows and take all columns. And let's find all the unique description names. Okay? So what I did was I took this column here, I looked for anything that had a alphabet letter, and then I basically stored that and looked for the description name that coincides with that. So these are some of the names that come up, and depending on your analysis, this may be very useful, but it's also another little tool or a piece of information that you may need and you may have overlooked. The next thing, we're doing the if-else statement here. Interestingly enough, in R, you basically avoid using loops if at all possible. So you'll use if-else statements like this, or you'll use apply functions. You can use a while loop. Now, we're saying if-else. So we're saying, let's take country quantities that are greater than 1 and set that to 1. Otherwise, if it doesn't equal a positive value, set it to 0 and create a new column named canceled quantities here. And let me scroll down. There we go. So we have anything that equals 0 for a canceled quantity. Okay, that's what's going on here. But then now I have to think, how do I actually deal with these two rows and get rid of those? Then I'm interested in saying, I have how many canceled orders, and that canceled order in this table corresponds to 0, and it equals around 2%. This is a proportion, so you need to multiply by 100, but it's a little over 2% of our current orders. Okay, that's fine, but That's only canceled. That's not the counterpart that was the original order that canceled that you need to get rid of. We're going to get to that shortly. I said, well, how do I start evaluating this and making use with this data? Because I need to get rid of these rows, but how do I actually manage this? So I first said, let's order my columns, first by customer ID, then by the stock code, and then by canceled quantity. So it first ordered by individual people, then by the stock code for each item that people purchased, then the quantities. And I thought, well, maybe if they're back to back, I could figure a way to discard these. This particular person, only made one purchase and one cancellation. But this person made many purchases, many purchases, many purchases. So then that starts getting difficult, and I said, maybe they're not back to back. How do I start to deal with this? And then I came on to thinking, well, let me use a LeftJOIN, where I'm taking anything that's in my X, and here it's going to be my sorted countries, and I'm taking all of those rows, and then I will take all of the columns between X and Y will be all of my canceled orders. But you need to think that all of the rows of Y not matching in X will end up giving an NA value for any new columns that you have. So remember that. And then if there are matches between your X and your Y, then you're going to return a combination of all of those. And then we use the MUTATE here to basically create a new variable, and if that variable name already existed, then you're basically overriding that name. Okay? So then what does this stuff really look like? Well, I created a canceled orders. Let's look at what that looks like. This is your Y. So this is everything that's canceled here. So I extracted those because I want to do my comparison. Okay? So basically I'm taking the sorted countries that has canceled and regular orders, and I'm doing a comparison by the customer ID, let me mention something that I did before and I didn't show it here, and I'll need to fix the code. I changed the cancel quantities to positive values here, so then I can make a direct comparison between the quantity, the customer ID, and the stock code. Okay? That's something I need to go back and right back in the code. I overwrote that last night. But this allows me to do matching rows. Okay? So then I have this matches here, which is just saying, well, since each one of these will all have the same countries and the same amount of information, I use that to do my match, and I said let's mutate and create a new column called matches and do an if-else statement saying that basically if the matches are there, if there's not, let me refresh. You're returning a true value if the rows are matching and a false value if they are not. Okay? So let's look at what that looks like. Okay. So we have all these that are false, 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 and then you have some trues right here that are matching rows. You see that? All of this information is matching. This was your canceled value, and while this is positive, it doesn't matter because you still have this right here, this cancel quantity, which is 0, which corresponded to your cancel, so you're still good. Okay? Then I was interested in saying, well, were there duplicates? And there were. And it turned out that while we did have duplicates, it wasn't that bad, and I'll show you why. Out of our new data set, we have a little over 400,000 rows. While in that data set, it appears that we have 3,300 rows that were duplicated, which is perfect because the ratio of canceled orders to our full data set is only around 3.5%, which is not bad. And then from that, evaluating our sorry, I just wanted the spaces. Evaluating that from our non-canceled data, so basically our canceled and our non-canceled, instead of comparing the whole thing, was only around 3.7%. So we're still doing pretty good. Okay, so basically what I said is I took everything that was a true, which meant that we had the duplicate rows, versus everything that was not a duplicate. Okay, and then from there I wanted to look at corresponding matches to cancellations. And what does that even mean? Well, here the 0 represents our canceled orders, and this is the original order that had a match to the cancel. And you see that these don't represent each other. And the reason may be this. You have more cancellations here, but those values may correspond to cancellations that occurred with outside of the date ranges of our data. So our data correspond to a 1 year, 1 fiscal year, I guess. And you may have some cancellations that occurred within that fiscal year, but the original purchase happened roughly before it. So that's why it doesn't show up. Now, orders with matching cancellations turned out to be a little over 14,000. Okay, but how much of our actual data is left as a ratio of this cancellation? That means that I still have 87% of my subset data to play with, which is great. Which means that I still have almost 390,000 observations to still do any form of analysis with, which is wonderful. Okay? So then I say, well, let's look at what these data actually look like instead of just talking. So I created orders canceled equal true as a data frame, and then I just called everything else rest of data. Okay? This first part corresponds to everything that was canceled. Now, here we are with the original purchase, and here we are with the cancellation. Here we are with original purchase, here we are with the cancellation, and it just keeps on going. Something that's cool here is maybe you could say, well, let's look at all the canceled orders and let's figure out if maybe there's a trend between customers who routinely cancel orders. Maybe if you wanted to look at that. Who knows? Maybe you wanted to compare canceled orders between countries. I don't know what you want to do, but that's an option. Okay, that's the end of this video. But I would like to say that the preceding videos from here will start doing analysis of our data and some summary statistics, graphing, and so forth. But I'd like to say thank you for watching. I hope this brought utility to somebody. Please subscribe and turn on that notification bell and throw a like if you liked this video. And if you didn't, leave me a comment and tell me why, so I could have a critique and do better. And avoid having a thumbs down if possible, because it works out better for all of us if I can make this channel better for you and me. I'm still learning. And as always, thank you for watching, and see you in the next video. Bye.